Hey, party people. Welcome to Live on Shally's Alley. That's right. You are live. You are alive. And this is live. And it is October 3rd. I think that means officially the beginning of fall, I hope, because man, I could not wait for summer to be over. I am so done with that. Summer is dead to me. And even though it's not gotten that much cooler, the leaves are starting to fall and it's pretty. And so here we are, live on Shally's Alley. October 3rd. I'd like to welcome our guest today. We've never met. This is literally the first time that we're meeting. And as you all know, I ask people for a recommendation on who else should be on the show. And that is somebody immediately said, "Oh, I know who you need to have on the show. You need to invite Angel." And I was like, all right. I sent her a message and she said, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to." And so here we are. You were recommended. How does that feel? You like that?
Yeah, I do. I actually do. I'm thankful for the individuals who did.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great. So a little bit about our guest today. You're in Florida, right? Just want to make sure I got
That
that
is
right.
correct. I'm in
You're in
Tampa,
Florida.
Florida. Yes.
Yep, not too far from where my neck of the woods up here. Um, so you're the founder of Unplugged Connect, a movement that sparks deeper connection in an increasingly digital world.
Yes.
Um, been working for about 8 years in building high performing recruiting teams and leading diversity strategies and negotiating offers. You said you've negotiated more than 10,000 offers
Yeah.
in the corporate, government, and tech sectors at
Yes.
Randstad, at Manpower, Huntington National Bank. Um, so kind of data driven with a people first and connection
Yes.
policy type of background and scaling, right? Is that it?
That is correct. That is correct.
Cool, cool, cool. So we want to talk about today why recruiters should think more like architects, like workforce architects, and along the ways, explore your ideas on the future of connection, right? So, as a kind of a way to kind of get things started, your background, your career shows a pretty unique blend. I'd say rare blend of high volume recruiting, from like major partners like Randstad and Manpower, RPOs, and high volume. You've also done strategy, and you've also done people first leadership, and those are three different worlds, really. I mean, high volume is very transactional, very churn.
Yeah.
Strategy, very thought intensive and future driven, as opposed to transactional, like what do we need today, like literally in the next hour. You've trained national teams, you've done lots of negotiations, and you said you created a card game.
Yeah. I have. I
So
have.
all of this is not a typical TA path.
Yes.
Um, Tie this together for me.
Yeah. So to give you a quick rundown, before TA, I was a therapist. So I did.
Oh,
I was a therapist for over 5 years, traveling with.
a
Uh,
traveling therapist. Wow.
I was with NAMI, so I worked a lot with mental health. And it led me into the workplace because I noticed that a lot of individuals were having a lot of issues in the workplace. So I thought about switching career paths and really getting ahead of the game when it came to mental health, which led me into TA because I thought if I interacted with the individuals ahead of time and start building those relationships, we can find additional resources within the companies so individuals can be just overall well-rounded in their role. And I fell in love with TA and I stayed in TA. And here I am now working with Huntington Bank. I am the founder of Unplugged Connect, and it's about building authentic relationships in the corporate space, at home, just the individual can just be their full selves all throughout. And I'm super excited about chatting with you today regarding that.
Wow. So I people ask me when they're exploring the opportunity of becoming a recruiter, and
Yeah,
I had for many years I ran a nonprofit, a 501c3, to get
yeah,
people into recruiting from displaced, workers caregivers, people with disabilities, blind and hearing impaired, deaf and hard of hearing, and all that. And I got asked a lot, what does a recruiter do? What's
Yeah.
day in life? And I actually describe it a little bit as it's like you're part project manager, you're part negotiator, you're part diplomat, and you're also part therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you kind of like because you do talk to people that they've had a hard time with switching careers. They're
Yeah.
having a hard time finding a job. They're having a hard time at their job. It's just like job satisfaction is a huge part of even if you don't live to work, even if you just work for the paycheck, it's still a big part of your life. Even if you try to not let it get to you. So yeah, the part therapist is sometimes you have to address that human side of it. You can't just transactionalize it to the nth degree. So what is the card game exactly? Like, how do you play a?
So
Just curious.
yeah, so
Did you
maybe
bring it? Can we play it now?
so Unplugged Connect, it is a card game. It typically can range from one person to six people. I typically tell people it's really great to have it with somebody that you really trust because it's going to go past that superficial level of knowing someone.
Got it.
And I tell people all the time when it comes to building authentic relationships and being a partner, whether in the workplace or you're at home, you have to hit the rough patches of who a person is to be able to truly understand who they are. So the card game really structures around very hard questions that a lot of people try to navigate away from. So the individual can start thinking in a strategic
Mhm.
way of why certain things in their lives are a certain way and how they can navigate to be better. One example, I have a friendship deck, and it's just really about really showing up for a friend in a way that they need it, not the way that we perceive it.
Or that
Right?
we think we should. Right. Right.
We should. And even in the workplace, we have so many different personalities. And a lot of people think, oh, if I communicate with them the way that I prefer, it will work that way. And it doesn't. So it's like finding those different ways to have those conversations with getting to know someone so we can maneuver a little bit better and that we can
Interesting.
up. So it's those type of questions. They're typically between 120 and 160 different cards in six categories, focusing on just different parts of a life and how we can combine. And I'm super excited because I even have one for parent and child, friends,
Oh, wow.
so it's
Okay.
multiple structured regarding that, but it's different questions. So a question would be, and one is, how do you show your grace when you hit failure, when you see failure
Oh,
in your life? How do you show yourself grace, right? And knowing how a person show grace to themselves, whether they do or they don't, the individual can be able to navigate that as a friend or a colleague. Or how do you show up when you know a colleague that was a top performer started to pull back? How do you be feeling like you're pushing too much? Just different type of questions like
mhm.
those that make people think, how can I show up for an individual? And especially I am a mother too. I have a 17-year-old son. It's just really great to start to learn how to have those conversations so we could just be well-rounded in general. A lot of us think to separate the relationships, but in reality, they all combine. Trauma
Yeah.
can trigger, and if you're in a workplace,
You
you can
had a
have a lot of
bad, yeah,
triggers.
right. It'll carry over. You can
Yeah,
try to isolate, and some people may be pretty good at, kind of, I don't know, compartmentalizing or what the word is, but yeah, it doesn't
to a
really,
certain degree.
yeah.
Yeah, it still rolls over when,
It's tough to
especially if
have a
you're having
bad
a
day
really
at home and then, try to, yeah. Or
Mhm.
vice versa, to have a bad day at work and then try not to
Yeah,
be at home.
vice versa,
Yeah.
you know. And I always just speak from my own personal experience. Like when I was a therapist and I worked for NAMI, I worked with a lot of doctors and a lot of officers and speaking about suicide ideation. A lot of that did transfer into my personal life to where I gave so much, where I was depleted when I came home. So I couldn't give like that emotional full capacity as a mother or a partner because it was already depleted for me giving it out to
Right.
so many individuals. So even though we can compartmentalize and be able to lead in different directions, it still slowly starts to bleed in other areas if we do not try to get ahead of it. And working in the corporate space and working under different sectors and working with different partners, it really matters because those triggers show up in different ways. And if you don't understand that somebody may have a trigger based off of a simple email that you send out, or if you're interviewing a candidate and you're responding a certain way, certain triggers can arise regarding that. So the Unplugged Connect is really just to understand the mindset in a different perspective. I know you spoke about earlier about just being that architect, and as a consultant or recruiter, you have to have that mindset where you look at different avenues, not just screening someone and seeing if they're a good fit, but looking at it from a personality perspective, a culture perspective, so you can really get a full understanding of that individual. So when you present them to a leader, they have a full grasp of who this individual is, not just their qualifications, but the things that's beyond them. And I always tell people the best way to know someone is to ask those questions, to get to know them, have a natural conversation, talk to them like they're your friend. And you get to really see more of their personality when you're interviewing them. You get to see more of their personality when you're asking those more deeper level questions, whether it's how many kids you have, if you have a cat, or things like that. You get to get a full understanding of who they are, so you can see what type of employee or partner you
Gotcha.
can be.
All right. Well, that's quite the trajectory. Pretty interesting way. I honestly can't say I've actually met anybody that used to be a therapist and got into recruiting. I'm sure there are many others, or it can't be that unusual. but that's quite the path. So you manage some pretty large teams. You had 35, 36 recruiters. And one of the things I've run into when managing large teams. First of all, I've managed both large teams of direct reports and also managers of managers. So like I've directly managed individual contributors. I think the largest team that I ever managed directly was 23 people that reported to me, which that's insane. By the way, that's a lot of people. Yeah, and I've also managed or led. I've been a leader of leaders, right? So leaders that have people that report to them that are individual contributors. And between those two, there's a big difference. But when you have a large team of direct reports, that's what I want to hone in on. If you have more than 6 or 8 direct individual contributors, how do you balance the pressure of the metrics and the justification and the volume in this kind of what you're describing? I mean, this sort of not sort of this people first connection setting that you like to build. How do you deal with the two distinct goals, right?
Yes. So one thing that I tried to, when I was leading my team of 36 recruiters, the first thing I did was do a personality test for every last one.
Can you tell us?
To really understand how they operate. I use Crystal Knows. It's a quick summary. It gives you a summary of who they are. And I was able to see how they communicated, how best preferred ways to email them, things like that. So I put together like this real customized chart. I love Excel. Excel is like my best friend. So I put together like this really detailed chart about who they are. And then when I started working with them in regards to our client base, because I had 2 clients at the time that I was supporting, I was able to help navigate their metrics regarding that and have those conversations. When I first started with them, it was very rough for them. I'll be very honest, because they wasn't used to a very hands-on leader. I also believe in having a more of a open policy when it comes to development, so they can try things their own way to figure out what works. Thing was giving them that space to make mistakes and figure it out, but also be there with them. So if they hit a rough patch, I walked them through it. I was there with them like I was the recruiter myself. And it really helped get my team together very quickly, extremely quickly, as well as my leaders. They were able to trust me, and I was able to start challenging their norm when it came to increasing their volume and what that looks like. So if their volume was, I submitted 4 applicants this week. I'm like, hey, let's look at some numbers. I'm very metrics driven. Like, let's look at some numbers to see what we can do to increase that, so you can really show yourself in the workplace as an employee. I also found out what their passions was inside and outside of the workplace. A lot of times, a lot of leaders just focus on inside of the workplace. I don't, because there's something that we like that I can help pull to help develop them even further. And I allowed them to take on like leadership responsibilities from time to time, leading our weekly huddles, reviewing numbers, giving recognitions, and that really helped with me being able to balance while also being able for my employees. So that was extremely beneficial, really getting to know them. But the first month of me taking on the project, I really just spent time getting to know them without the numbers, just really seeing what they were looking at. If they had previous PIPs, reviewing what those look like, where were the hiccups at, asking those questions from their perspective, which gave me better insight into
I
who
had a
they were as an
mentor a long,
employee.
long ago that corrected me once, and it sort of stuck with me. Um, that I made a comment in a conversation. I was like, it's business, not personal. Because it was somebody had taken something personally, right? And I'm like, but it's business, not personal. And so my mentor was like, all business is personal. They were like, business is personal. You can't say it's business, it's not personal, because for a lot of people, for most people, business is personal, especially if you're invested. If you care about your company, it's personal. If you're invested in your job, it's personal. If you're invested in your career, it's personal. So for it to not be personal, it would have to be someone who doesn't care about their employer, doesn't care about their job, doesn't care about their career. And that's not normal common. I mean, you have to be really disengaged. um, we even talk about like quiet quitting and all that stuff nowadays, because people are
Mm-hmm.
so disengaged that when this happens, yeah, it's not personal anymore. But then are they even showing up? Like it's kind of like at that point. So yeah, I totally get it. Um, you talked a little bit about um, kind of understanding the whole, if you will, but you also have worked with policy.
Yeah.
And especially nowadays where DI is among some circles starting to become a bad word, and people are deleting their DEI policies and stuff
Yeah.
like that, which is what I mean. I'm just sitting back going, what? But you've actually
It's insane.
moved policy into practice and progress. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, I think one of the mistakes that and I've talked about this on the show a few times with different kinds of leaders in the DEI space and in TA consulting and stuff like that, where I think leaders can tend to make the mistake of like enforcing a policy for the sake of the policy. And that is actually what went wrong with DEI, was when it was enforced as a policy, when it was like a police thing. Like you became, as if HR is not bad enough with all the things that they have to police. Now, and again, another thing. So if you made it that, it was a policy, but it wasn't a plan. You've actually turned
Yeah.
it into,
Versus human
yeah.
experience.
So what's the biggest mistake that you think leaders make, or you see leaders make when they're trying to drive, let's call it inclusion, um, and what's the redirect?
Mm-hmm.
Around.
That's a really great question, and I have multiple ways to even answer that. So when you're thinking from like
Good
the
point.
top-down approach, and you're dealing with a lot of leaders that have that particular mindset, just focus on numbers and getting the numbers for the government,
Yeah,
right? Their
compliance.
perspective of policy looks completely different from people that are actually in it, living it, and working it. The biggest thing of how we navigated that with the multiple partners that I had was literally leading by people first and not looking at, oh, am I hitting a certain metric for the government? It's still about finding the right applicant for the company, culturally and qualification wise, but it was also allowing individuals to see that there's multiple different people on the growth panel where they can grow. So I know for my company now, D&I is extremely still big for us. It's still a part of our company because that's what our footprint is. We are a people-led bank, and we believe in putting people first. So that means individuals of all different walks of life. So when you really lead with that initiative and not just, oh, because it's D&I, we're literally giving everybody the opportunity to show themselves and show up fully. It shows the whole perspective of D&I. And I tell people all the time, if you really want to know, and this is going to be very contradiction to say working in HR, there's different companies who truly live by D&I without the policy, and then there's some that only did it because of the policy, because it was in place. And when you work for the government and you work it at a higher scale, you do have to meet certain metrics to get
Well,
certain
yeah, I mean,
things
there's
back.
a point at which you have to like, provide
Yeah.
evidence that you've done it, and so there's proof. But when it becomes when the it's the incentive, I think, is what it comes down to, right? If you incentivize a bunch of
Yeah.
recruiters
It doesn't-
to make phone calls and you're measuring them by the numbers of calls they make, they'll make a lot of calls. It doesn't matter if they turn into hires because you're measuring them on the calls. So it
Bingo.
really doesn't matter
Yeah.
whether it's diversity or any subject matter. If you're enforcing the KPIs for the sake of the numbers, then you're losing track of the objective. You have to kind of, I guess, I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
phrase this in a better way. You have to focus on the outcome, and then how does the outcome?
Versus
Yeah, how did you meet that outcome with your activity, but not manage to the activity? Because then you're managing to the KPIs, not to the outcome. Yeah.
And it goes back to that human experience. Is if I'm going to show up and I'm going to interview applicants, is just showing the best of the company and giving the pros and cons. You're going to get well qualified individuals of
So
all
your
different walks of
redirect is
life,
to
and that's what a lot of now
focus on the way to do it, the
on that.
connection by
Yeah,
example, and then with an eye for tracking the metrics. But the redirect is don't worry as much
with an
about the
eye for
metrics as you
tracking
do about the outcomes. Okay, got it. That makes sense.
because it brings when you're more authentic, when you're more people led driven, you're going to get diversity because they see the truth. They feel like they can be seen. They feel they can be heard. And by me doing that practice of interviewing all, I've always my numbers of diversity was always high because of that because I spoke about all different things. I also became an advocate for areas that I was weak in, right? Speaking with individuals living with a disability, that's a huge factor right now for a lot of companies trying to find the great individuals of who they can coach and develop or bring into different roles. Giving them that space and showing up in a way that they need to show up so when you present them, they can fully show themselves. And the more you just lead with grace and lead with different understanding. I always
Oh, there you go. You back? Got muted for a second there. Still there? Did we lose you? Folks, I don't know if we completely lost contact here or what, but let me see if I can try on LinkedIn and connect with her there. Okay, yeah, no, she's still online. Can you hear us? We'll give it a minute. Hopefully, she'll come back. In the meantime, let me tell you about AI browsers. So while we have this chance, here is an opportunity for you to do yourself a favor and download my free. This is free. I'm not selling you anything. It's a free guide on AI browsers for talent acquisition. It's basically, make yourself automation, agentic browsers that are anywhere from free to, $20 a month that you can use to run some of the heavy lifting behind the scenes while you're focusing on other activities. So true agentic browsers. But you need to know about the governance, what they can do, when they can't do. So scan this QR code, or if you are not near a QR codable situation, then the other place you can do it is just simply go to tsiuniversity.com free dash toolkit. Again, just sign up, email address, and it'll email you the PDF. It's a big document and there's a lot of information in there. So I didn't want to just kind of put it out there willy nilly. I wanted people to be able to get access to it privately. And that way you can also message me if you have any questions. So with that said, oh, looks like we have her back. And welcome back. Hey, how's it going?
Thank you. Thank you. For some reason, it just dropped, and
It
we had
dropped
to
you.
let.
Yeah, sorry about that. It doesn't usually happen.
No worries, but I'm still here. But I know that we were chatting, and I was speaking about just leading with the level of empathy and understanding when you're interviewing, and when you focus on that, you bring the right talent. The right talent comes that increases your numbers versus it being because of policy.
Yeah, focus on the outcome. What's your outcome? Yeah, I like that. So you've built pipelines through community partnerships and through corporate
Yeah.
strategy. What which which approach has been most underestimated by leaders? The community partnership or the corporate strategy?
I would say community, the community output. A lot of
Why?
individuals, when you're thinking about top down, they don't really think about the powerful impact of what that entails, especially when you focus on community. But when
Okay.
you do focus on community, it expands and it's more of a word of mouth, and people start to believe word of mouth over a corporate strategy or what that looks like. So people want to know, especially now in 2025, they want to see what you're doing for the community. They want to see how you're interacting with the community, not the other way around. And it's building more trust that way, which opens up expansion. So I would say the community
Yeah,
outreach. A lot of TA leaders understand the community outreach input and what
but
that
they
looks like.
underestimate it.
They underestimate a lot of other leaders. They think if I do a more broader expansion, the better. And it could be
Mhm.
better depending on certain parts, like if you're thinking about commercial lending, things like that, it's better. But when you're talking about the people aspect and you want to reach the people, community is so much more impactful. We have, especially, I would just speak for just myself, for me doing a lot of community outreach has opened up so many partners personally, being able to find more mentors. I was
Mhm.
able to engage where people were like, hey, I have applicants for you. Where I didn't have to do an additional sourcing because
Right.
people knew how much it meant to me as an individual interviewing, that I got so many well qualified people for multiple companies that I work for that it helped with my hiring process even quicker because of that. So people start to trust that process just a little bit more differently because you're reaching out in ways that a lot of people don't. You know, you're going into the community to be able to engage them versus them coming to you.
Yeah. So yeah, I have a lot of experience with grassroots, um, and it definitely, in my experience, when you get it right, grassroots has a much more lasting effect. In a
Hmm.
lot of ways, very similar to sourcing. When you do sourcing right, there's a long tail. Sourcing that's executed properly, has advantages from competitive intelligence to talent pipeline to just reputation management and all kinds of things. When it's done wrong, though, sourcing can be very transactional and damaging. And the same thing with grassroots outreach. If you're not doing it right, it can burn you. Here's the
Yes.
thing, though: the number one key to both is, from a grassroots point of view, is understanding what they need. Like, for example, this is something that I ran into myself. We had budget at this company to spend on an outreach program, and in particular, this was women engineers. So witty, um, and a couple sweet. There's a couple of societies and associations, yeah, and they wanted to like the powers that be were like, let's have a meeting at our facility. We have this nice facility. We can host the meeting, and we've got a great catering service. So they'll see how cool we are and how big our building is, and all this other stuff, and like impress them with our presence. And I'm like, sure, but what? So I see what we get from that.
Yeah.
What are they going to get from that? And think for a minute, not trying to be chauvinistic here at all. Believe me, far from that. But a lot of times it turns out that women are the caregivers of the children. It. I'm not saying that that's the way it's supposed to be. I'm saying there should be equal weight carried here or whatever. I don't care. I'm not going to get into political debate, but the fact of the matter is, if you look at the typical everyday working engineer who happens to also be a female, they also happen to be the ones that take care of the kids. They don't want to go to drive someplace far away to to do that, it's not exactly like it really doesn't do very much. And do they really need another meal? I mean, if they're engineers, they're not having a hard time finding a meal for themselves, even if it's a good meal. So kind of like that. What does that really do? I said, well, why don't we? I told the bosses, I'm like, why don't we ask them? Let's reach out to the chapters and say, hey, yo, what do you guys need right now? Like, we wanted to host a meeting, but that's like X dollars. Like, I don't know, I'll just say $2,000. It was more than that, but it's $2,000. But we have this $2,000. Like, we could do a meeting
Yeah.
and, host you guys, or we could do something else. What would you rather do? And they were like, well, we do actually have a hard time finding places to meet because not a lot of places charge us money. And I
Yeah.
said, okay, well, we can provide the place to meet. And they said, yeah, but we don't really need meals. And we actually would rather meet in the morning on the way to work so we can go to the meeting and have the meeting and then go to work and finish out our day. And it disrupts our day the least if we do. So they're like, could you just lend us your meeting room for an hour at 8 o'clock? And I'm like, yeah, we'll even provide coffee. And they're like, no, 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 don't worry about it. Most of us already got coffee. But like, just give us the meeting. We'll bring our own coffee. And then I'm like, well, what else do you need? And they say, well, we have a hard time finding people to present because not everybody likes to get on the stage. And so I'm like, oh, all right. So we'll have a meeting room for you and we can get you a speaker that'll do a, whatever, 10, 15, 20 minute, you know, training or workshop on something that that you care about. And they loved that more. We did that several times and it basically cost us nothing pretty much.
Yeah.
And so then we took the money and used it to buy advertising, which for them was a distribution. So we gave them the money and they sent out emails on our behalf, which got us a lot more traction than. And that was just one example. And there's so many others. So with grassroots, it's like, if you think you know what they want, they'll take it because, hey, sure, we'll have a meeting at your facility, but really we don't need the food, we don't need this, and we don't want it to be lunch, and we don't want it to be happy hour because we don't want to encourage drinking, and there are all these things are like, coffee in the morning is fine.
Yeah.
So
And
if
then
you don't nail that, then you just alienated that group.
And that is so true, but I also believe it goes back down to the first, what is my whole point of connecting with them?
What was the
Right?
point of that? Right, exactly. Why are we reaching out to you in the first place? We're reaching out to you to let you know that we employ women who are engineers. And we are a women-friendly workplace. This is not a, workplace where you will be Googled at or,
Yeah.
we have safe parking, well lit. We have escorts to the car if you need it. We have access to commutable, transportation, all the things that anybody would want, male or female. It's a good place to work, and you probably don't know about it. So that's really all we needed to know.
That's it. And if they lean more on, and I tell people, if a company leans more on its employees for new ideas, that's the best way to do so because you get the real information of what's important to them. And if it's important to a large group of people, more than likely it's more important to the more of the community as well that they're surrounded by. So having that open dialogue, asking what do they want, we do it a lot for a lot of our strategies, right? So when it comes to, I was supporting a strategy of the OLA BRGs, and they were asking, well, what do you think they want? And I'm like, did you ever ask the employees that we currently have, what is it that they want? What do they need from us? So they can feel supported. That's going to open up expansion. And no one never thought about that. Just a very simple question would get into the root of it. And when we were able to set up those local, more cadenced, kind of smaller groups, we're able to get a big broad of what they were looking for as a whole, which helped increase our numbers in the Hispanic community because we asked directly what that is that they were looking for.
What do you want? And what's going to help you? And what I like to draw like a Venn diagram, right? So start with what's the problem? What are you solving for, right? In this case, in the point of like community outreach for diversity, this was specifically gender-based initiatives where we wanted to increase applicant flow in the female category, right? So it wasn't a problem, first of all, but that was the goal. So it's not like, oh God, we don't have any females. It was more like, we want to encourage that. So that was the goal. So we start with that. And I like to draw a Venn diagram where the other two circles of the Venn diagram are what do you need, as in, the group, right?
How can we?
And what are we able to provide? So here's
Yeah,
what we need. What do you need? And what can we provide? And if you like those three things, and you find in the middle that what we have that you want, that we also want, then you got a grassroots program. Otherwise, you just got marketing.
yeah. I think a lot of people don't truly understand what grassroots truly means. Sometimes they just think it's
Tell
just,
us, what does it mean? What does grassroots mean? Why don't you define
connection.
that for us?
Is to me, grassroots is beyond just connection. Is really creating some type of transactional relationship that can help with expansion on both sides. It's
Right, their
also a
goals as well as, yep.
connection on a deeper level, right? I can have I can connect with you and say like, hey, send me resumes. Doesn't mean that we have a real authentic, deepened connection where it's going to lead to hires, right? You can send me resumes and I can look at them and just leave it there. But if I know like, hey, Shally sent these individuals here, I already vetted out certain things. I know there's certain skills that we can use and have constantly have those dialogues and conversation. Now that we have a relationship, and then it's more deeper. Now I know like, hey, this like the University of Michigan. I'm just going to throw a random college. They have really skilled individuals due to their master's program. So we know that they have X, Y, and Z of what we look for. Now I know I can connect with their leaders. Now I can connect with their teachers. Now I can go inside of there and have more conversations to open up what it looks like. So our name is more big to them. And it's that's how I look at it. It's really bringing something to the individual, not always getting something in return. Because sometimes it can be on one side a little bit more while you build things up, but really going into to create a transformation
Yeah.
on a deeper level.
I think I like to describe it as grassroots is bottom up. Like that's why I'm thinking, I don't know if that's where it came from, but I'm thinking like the grass grows up. Yeah, like it
Yeah,
comes from the root. So bottom up is grassroots. Strategy is top down. It comes from, you know, the vision, and then tries to so the rain comes down and waters the grass, but the grass has to come up, right? That's kind of how I see it. So in my world, or my version of it, I meet people where they are. So that's their neighborhood, their school, their community, whatever that means to them, because I don't want to dictate the community part of it, right? Their community could be, for some people, community is soccer. For other people, community is church. For some people, church is soccer. It just, but that's not up to me for me to define. It's where is the community, and then meet them there instead of having them, again, don't get in the car to drive to our office unless you actually want that, right?
yeah,
So meet them where they are in those hubs, and then um, start there, right? Like first go there, and then what do you need? And if at this point all they need is basically something to get started with, and we do that. Right? It's the most basic. I think one of the biggest success stories in the history of the world with grassroots has been RLFs, revolving loan funds. You familiar with those?
very similar.
So yeah, I mean that's something I had a lot of work experience with in my previous career. And basically, what it is, it's a small amount of money. It is money, but it isn't money that you give, because when you give money, there's the expectation that it's free money. Like, I
Yeah,
got this money, I can do it. It's a loan, but it's a loan that has a condition. It's a loan that you don't have to pay back to me. It's a loan that you have to pay back to the next person. So I give you, let's say, $100 in order for you to be able to buy something that let's say a sewing machine. And then
okay.
you buy the sewing machine for $100, make some dresses, sell
And
them, and then you take that $100 and you give it to the next person who needs to buy an oven. And then they make bread, sell that. You see what I mean? So I never supposedly get the $100 back, because it gets passed from one to the other, and the members determine who's the next person that gets it. And so they just keep going that way. When they're paying back, they're not giving me back the money, they're investing in their community. And that really works because exactly what you said, you get people involved in what they care about. This is what that person wanted. They wanted to be a baker, they wanted to be a seamstress, they wanted to be a, whatever. That's what they wanted. They put themselves into it, and they also know that if they're successful, somebody else will be able to be successful because of their success. And that's very motivating, versus go to the bank, get money, and then you have to pay it back. I mean, that's traditional, but it's not the same.
but it's more rewarding too because you
Way
get to
more
see
rewarding, and it's only $100.
that.
You know what I mean? It's not 100 million. Now, yes, you do need the strategy where somebody comes in and says, "Y'all can't get us. you can't get an oven and you can't get a sewing machine because you don't have any electricity. So somebody's going to have to put in power lines. Well, that's not a grassroots. That's now we need to electrify or,
Yeah.
so carrying that over into talent acquisition, are you trying to hire people, for example, in a displaced community, and are you providing them housing because they've been displaced?
Yeah.
Sure, you can hire all these people that got kicked out of their homes because of a national disaster. Great recruiting opportunity, but where are they going to live?
Yeah. And
So, are you providing them jobs, providing them shelter, and then they can get back on their feet and get jobs? You see what I mean?
I'm so glad that you spoke on that, because that's one
It's
thing that we train a lot of our leaders to open up their mindset when they're interviewing applicants, right? So the biggest thing that you may see in an interview process, if somebody comes into an interview and they're not properly presented well. I'll give you an example of a previous manager that I had years ago. They interviewed this applicant and they're like, this applicant is really strong and they have these things, but they came in with flip-flops. And I'm like, have you ever considered they may not have money? Have you considered that
could they be
different
displaced?
type of
Right.
area that they may be in? That can be something that can be coached. That can be something that can be helped to help scale them to the next one, because they're going to say, you know what, somebody took a chance on me. I'm going to take a chance on someone else. And teaching a lot of my managers to have that open mindset and understanding that they have hiring biases. We have over 15 hiring biases. And making them well educated about those, it helps open up that up so they know, like, is this person displaced? Can I help them? Can I help coach this up? Because a lot of people can be coached and developed versus just looking at a particular skill. And when you go with that type of mindset, it helps bring in really great applicants that have always been overlooked. A lot of people
That's
think
beautiful. Yeah.
they have to come fully presentable, and they don't have to. I say, hey, if you show up and you can show me you, and it's the real you, not a facade, just the real you, we can work with a lot of things. We can coach a lot of things. A lot of us had to start somewhere, right? When I started in recruiting, I had to learn to switch from a therapist mindset to more of a consultative mindset. That means somebody had to walk me through what that looks like from an HR perspective, right? So just taking those time to be able to give people grace and understand from a different perspective really help bring a lot of people, which can help increase retention and longevity within a workplace, because they say, this company really stood out to me. They really took a chance on me when others just tossed me to the side. And then two, I always tell people, like managers in general, don't interview out, interview in. It switches your perspective with what qualities is very transferable, what competencies that they may have, versus weeding them out. Like, I'm just going to interview you and see who can I weed out. Like, no, see who we can weed in. Look at their strengths and weaknesses, weigh them out, so you know how really great they are and what could be definitely coached, and then assess it in the next year. What has been increased? Look at some metrics. Use those things that can really help make an individual better.
Yeah. So that's a good one. I actually had a friend that did this where they were providing, sorry, that we wear jackets, suit jackets. So they went to a conference,
Mm-hmm.
a career show or a career, I don't even know what the right word for that is, a job fair. They went to a job fair and they brought suit jackets. They brought like a wheel. You ever see one of those like wheelie wardrobes?
Yeah. So
Like it's like you know what I mean? So they literally wheeled in with like a wardrobe of like, I don't know, a stack of different size suit jackets, right? And they wear, and this was a career fair for people that were, looking for work that was a little bit on the lower end of the pay scale. Let's say, these are blue collar or other types of entry level jobs and things like that. And so what they did was they were like, look, if you're going into like a booth or something like that, you're gonna interview some people, put this on, and when you do the thing, come back and bring it back on the rack, and because they don't need to know that it's not your jacket.
they don't need to know that it's
They don't
country.
need to know that. You know what I mean? They just want to see that. They just want to pass that checkbox right now. Now the real answer is it doesn't matter what. First of all, my question would be, are they going to need a jacket when they do their job? Which, if you're asking them to interview in a shirt and tie just to look good, but their job is literally wearing overalls, it's kind of like maybe you should wear your overalls to the interview, because that might display more authority than a jacket. But the idea was the right idea, because he knew that these people were not in a position to go buy, but even the cheapest jacket, it was, $90.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not exactly like the thrift stores have the
The best
obviously,
ones, right?
yeah, exactly. So this is what they did. They loaned them out during the day, and then they had tags on them. People would bring them back and swap the tag, and it was like interview day jackets for people who, I thought that was brilliant. I
It
just thought, I was
is
like,
brilliant
that's
'cause it's meeting people where they're at. And then
exactly what I was saying. Yeah.
you meet them exactly where they're at, and you never know what type of career path you can create for that individual by just giving that type of grace and
Just
lead.
that one little thing,
That one thing.
which they probably didn't even think of because it wasn't in their mind. Like, oh, I got to go buy a jacket. They were like, I can't afford the bus ride.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's
You
pretty
know,
cool
and
stuff.
I'm so glad that you spoke on that. My current company, we have two different ways. So we have an individual that cannot meet and attend our actual trainings. We do a
Okay.
virtual. We have them do a virtual where they don't have to commute further and they don't have to go to our training lab. So it's literally meeting them where they're at, especially if they're honest and say, hey, I can't, but we know that they could be a really great employee. Let's do a
Right.
virtual.
I
Let's
would if I could, but
experience
it's
so
not.
you can get there. And then if we can adjust it, then we can adjust it. But as of right now, let's meet virtually at your branch or your headquarters, whatever that may look like, so you can still get that experience with your team.
Yeah. I got a doozy of a question for you.
Yeah.
This is a tricky one. And if
Okay.
you want to,
Throw
if
it
you want
at,
to, yeah, if you want to punt, I totally get it because it's a big one.
throw it at me.
So you've done 10,000 salary negotiations, right?
Minimum week,
Minimum, right?
minimum in a week, probably 30 offers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody that's done that many offers,
Mm-hmm.
I know that you've learned what people really value
Yeah.
beyond paychecks. So when I have recruiters that tell me we're not paying enough, we're not offering enough money, I can't make the hires because our comp is off. Help me refute that because I know you've made negotiations
Oh yes.
in those 10,000. You made plenty of offers where somebody took a job for less than they asked or
100.
less than they were even. I'll even go as far as saying that they took a job for less than they were currently making.
Oh, 100%. Yes, I had many thousands. And the
Right. So
thing
what do I tell the recruiter that says, we're not paying enough. We need to offer more money. Isn't that just lazy?
it is to me, it is because then you don't know the person fully. You didn't ask enough
What do
in
they want?
right?
Exactly. What do they want?
So a few things that I look at. I make sure I'm well equipped knowing what my company.
Offers beyond money, right? Like beyond, right? I think she was going to say what the company offers beyond the money. Gosh, I hope she can make it back in. Oh, that's a good point. Let's give her a second here. Ooh, we're getting close on the end of the time here. Hope you can make it back in. At least to say goodbye. I'm sorry about this, folks. We seem to have a connection issue. Well, I did not post her URL, so here we go. This is Angel's URL, or LinkedIn URL. It's you probably know the first part of it, linkedin.com/in. So just type in Angel DBA, and oh, I heard something. False alarm. Okay. We'll see if she's able to come back. If you're hearing this, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure why you got dropped out. You're here? Oh, is it me? Oh no. All right. Well, she says, let me. I just asked her if there's anything she would want me to say, so I can communicate it because we're getting pretty close to the end of the show here, and not seeing her logging in. Well, folks, so sorry if we had this. I see her. I hear her. I can hear you. Say something. No,
Can you hear me, Shally?
I can hear you. Yeah, yeah. That's good. If we just have your audio, that's fine. So sorry about that. We
Amazing.
are running pretty close to the end of time here. Is there anything you wanted
Yeah,
to
so
leave us with about the salary question? You there?
can
I
you
can
hear
see
me?
you. Yeah,
Perfect.
I got you.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I would say for an individual, especially talent consultants, when it comes to negotiating those, is finding out what really matters to them when you're asking those questions. See if they're in school, see if they're going back to get a degree about benefits. A lot of times when you have those natural conversations, they open up more. I have a lot of women that say, or men like, hey, I'm starting a family in the next few years. So I start focusing on the benefits that we do have and say, like, hey, you can get these extra amount of benefits if you become an employee. And then within a year, we make adjustments, giving them that more insight, authentic relationship kind of conversation, which helped let me win over a lot of people, even individuals who probably took a 15, 20. Sometimes I have people take a $50,000 pay cut depending on the type of role because of the type of internal benefits that we have. So I tell people, get very involved with knowing what the benefits are. Have those conversations. And then if you could share from a personal perspective, one of my clients, they also gave away free therapy sessions. They gave away physical therapy sessions where you spoke with somebody if you had any issues. So speaking on those things from more of a personal level too helped me win over a lot of conversations and helped me pull over a lot of great individuals. So it's not just about weeding in their qualifications, and that's what I was speaking about earlier, just really
Right.
getting to know the individual past their qualifications. I want to know what's not on your resume. I want to know those type of skills because those skills are what made you who you are
Capabilities.
today,
Yeah. What
which
can
has
you?
helped me understand who you are now. So, if when a talent consultant look from that perspective about weeding in versus weeding out, it really gives them that knowledgeable information. So when an individual says like, "Hey, this is a pay cut," I can speak and say, "Hey, though it's a pay cut, you're going to get this, 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 and this." And then let's weigh it out. Let's have a conversation. Let's set up another
Right.
coffee chat,
Wait.
what
Weigh
that
the
looks like
difference.
so you can see. And then let's go from there. And it has won so many people over because of my
I
honesty,
bet.
and I led with integrity as well. So not trying to facade somebody way in or just sugarcoat or just no, I don't do any of those. I'd be very honest and transparent with the individual, letting them know what we can offer, what we can support. Right. One thing that one of my previous employees also had was two different type of educational benefits. After a year, they pay a full ride, and a lot of people like that's extremely important. That's a
That's a
lot of money I could
that's a chunk of
save.
money right there. Yeah.
So or if they're raising a family and they need to go through IVF. One of my previous companies paid over $30,000 on top of additional support. Like that's a lot of money that they're saving in another area that can help them start the family or whatever that is that they're looking for that's going to bring that complete happiness to them. So I tell consultants all the time, weed in versus weeding out and ask those more natural conversations. Don't jump straight into the interview. Hey, tell me more about yourself. What's more important to you? One of my biggest questions is, what do you want a company to provide to you? That gives me a quick breakdown of what they want very quickly as I'm analyzing them throughout the conversation.
That's great. You're providing them more than just money. I mean, it's money in other forms. There's other forms of money. You know what I mean? So, well, this has been a really educational chat and very animated. Thank you so much for your passion and your leadership in
Yeah.
this area. I'm very glad that I was introduced to you. We're a little bit over time, but I did want to ask you a question that I asked everybody, and the reason that you're on the show today. Who should be our next guest?
I'm so sorry, I can't hear you. I can
I
see
said,
you.
who should be our next guest? Did you catch that? Let me put it in the chat.
Great question. Really great question. I know a few VPs that can speak on a very higher scale. Her name is Kelly Blackman. She
Okay.
is a VP of in HR, which is really great. She can speak on multiple magnitudes of like career development, mobility, what that looks like, how to have those conversations when you're trying to grow yourself. And I always tell people, even applicants, you have to be a headhunter when it comes to your own career. You have to be that initiator. She will be somebody that can really speak from multiple ways, starting from the bottom up and moving up. I will also say Courtney Brainham. She started from assistant recruiter. Now she's a manager. Really great with leading and developing individuals in the RPO space. Is really good. I know a few individuals that are really good in general that I can send over later,
Sure, that'd be
but
great. Yeah, those are
those
two
two
great names.
individuals
Yeah.
really stand out to me when it comes to being your next. I partner with both of them, both two amazing leaders and women within
Excellent.
the HR space. Um, and they can also speak from what it looks like to hitting challenging times and developing and knowing what that looks like when a company is making a quick switch or doing a merger or what that may looks like. They can speak to applicants from that perspective. What does that look like from an applicant moving in trying to change direction? For me, switching from being a therapist to HR, that was a huge switch, right? And being able to find the type of competencies that can be able to move over.
Awesome. I'll invite them and hopefully they'll accept. Well, thank you so much again for your partnership on this. Everybody, we will see you next week. Ryan Leary hasn't been on the show in a while. I think it's been years. So he's going to be coming back next week. Hopefully you can tune in then. Until then, be kind.